Hey, I've been following a new thread of research specifically around this idea of um, basically no one can see God and live. So that's the standard biblical position on experiencing God, is that if you see God, you will die. And so a good example of that is when the first temple was created to house the Ark of the Covenant. The priests would have essentially a rope tied around their waist. So when they went into the Holy of Holies, if they were struck dead, they could be yanked back out and no one else would die. So kind of thinking about that and thinking about this ancient Near Eastern storm god archetype. These gods are gods of storms, of wind, of whirlwinds. Yahweh presents God's self within a whirlwind, within a riddle, within a thundering nothingness that is similar to other deities that we see in the ancient Near East, like Marduk and Baal. And then also you have Sumerian wind demons that travel in packs in the desert. The desert is kind of seen as this, wild place, this liminal space between where humans exist and then where the divine is. So, kind of thinking about that and thinking about um, the ways in which Yahweh describes Yahweh's self through like these nature riddles, through this thundering nothingness. And so, one really good example of that is found in Job. So, Job is a great book to read. I love it. It's one of my favorites. But Job has all these horrible things happen to him. And so he questions God. He finally begins to question God. And so God responds essentially from a whirlwind with an extreme challenge to him that's nature oriented. And so he asks all these cosmic questions, these nature related questions. But one that sticks out to me the most is, I'll read it from the New Revised Standard Version. It's, out of whose womb came the ice and the hoary frost of heaven, who hath gendered it? So, we see this kind of genderless experience of God. And that relates back to this idea of apophatic theology, which is kind of this negation. So you're describing God in only negative terms. God is not this, God is not that. We cannot assign a gender to God. God is essentially not to be seen, not to be perceived, but God is an experience to be had. And similarly, one of the minor prophets, Habakkuk, I love this book because it's very short and it's bizarre. So again, Yahweh is put on trial essentially for these horrible things happening to Israel, because through Israel's history, they were conquered again and again and again. And folks in the ancient Near East were always on the brink of famine and just total destruction. And so Habakkuk puts God on the witness stand for this. And God's response is basically a thundering, deafening nothing, a vacuum. And I find that so interesting, and it speaks so much to the experience that many ancient Near Eastern cultures have of their God, especially in battle, riding in on the storm, riding in on the wind to conquer on behalf of. And so even with Ahura Mazda, who's essentially a peaceful, loving God, we see basically this chariot on the wind. And similarly with the book of Ezekiel as well, Yahweh is presented on this just insane, fiery throne that flies through the sky. And that's where you'll find that wheel within a wheel imagery that everyone loves so much. Yeah, it's just this bewildering experience of the divine that I'm really thinking about. So yeah, thanks so much for listening to this. I don't know if anyone enjoys these videos, but they're extremely helpful for me for kind of keeping track of my research. So yeah, there's a couple other things I want to work on in the future, especially Barbelo, the first emanation from the monad in Gnostic ideology. And then I'm also pretty interested in the demonology of the Sumerians, so I might do some videos.